So this evening, ladies and gentlemen, we're doing a second in a two-part podcast on the destruction of the Maple Leafs kind of last glory era of the 1980s, from the start of the 1979-80 season to 80-81. Now, our first part, we talked about all the machinations of Harold Ballard kicking Roger Nielsen out of the head coaching position, bringing in Punch Imlach, Carl Brewer, trying to make his team his own, and eventually feuding with DARRYL SITTLER, and leading to, in a retribution, many people believe, his good friend Lanny McDonald was traded to the Colorado Rockies with Joel Quenneville for Paymont and Pat Hickey. Now, according to many published sources, he was trying to undermine SITTLER's impact on the team. Now the teammates, trash Ballard personally and in the media for months after the trade, and also SITTLER in a scene that's better left not seen, because it broke Leafs fans' hearts after McDonald trade. Allegedly, SITTLER himself ripped the captaincy off his sweater. He said, I have no pull between management and the players because management don't listen to me. And Ballard said, this is like akin, taking off the captaincy for Toronto is akin to burning the Canadian flag. That's an awful allegory, because a lot of people believe when he traded Lanny McDonald, he basically, destroyed what was considered one of Canada's teams at the time, besides the Canadians. Now, Alan Nicholson, who was an agent and advisor for SITTLER and many other pros, called it a classless lack. But get this. And like in the summer of 1980, things didn't quiet down. Like, Ballard insisted to the press hundreds of times that SITTLER would not be back. Now, he told Punch Imlach to trade SITTLER, and get this, a lot of people don't know about this. They were setting up a trade of all teams at Quebec Nordiques. Can you imagine the Quebec Montreal rivalry would have been if SITTLER was traded to the Nordiques? But it didn't occur, and I tell you why. Punch Imlach, in probably the strangest thing in his life, I don't know if it was caused by his age or the stress, took a major heart attack and was hospitalized. And Ballard took over the team, made himself acting general manager, broke open talks with SITTLER, and the two of them agreed they would return to the team for, he returned to the team for 80-81, so the trade was called off. Now, I guess they appeared at a press conference together, and everything was cool and nice and all that. He would not only be in training camp, but he will be captain again. And Ballard, of course, in his Donald Trump type ways. Again, Donald Trump has nothing on Harold Ballard. You think Trump is weird? Ballard, again, factor crackpot number 17. He told the press, get this, the battle wasn't between SITTLER and me. It was Imlach and Nicholson. And SITTLER got just caught in the crossfire. And to show his good faith, he even signed Boris Salming to a new contract, because that Imlach didn't want to give him that new deal. Now, Ballard in the season basically ran a team that didn't really do anything but stay stagnant from the 79-80 mediocre side. Imlach was pretty well gone by the start of September 81. He took another heart attack, and again, he was never officially fired after the 80-81 season, but when he tried to return his office in November, he found out that his office was gone. But that's another story for another podcast. But get this, ladies and gentlemen, the 80-81 season, my God, the goaltending was terrible. I mentioned the Czech unsuperstar Yuri Sihara. Mike Palmentier was well gone in the trade. He played 54 games, a terrible goals against average of 4.07. And a lot of cast-offs were the backups. He tried Jim Rutherford for a while, tried Michel Larocque, the cast-off from Montreal, Kurt Ridley, the Vancouver Canuck here and there, and a young star by the name of Vincent Tremblay, who had no idea how to play between the pipes. Probably one of the worst goalies in Toronto history. But in the regular season, he barely made the playoffs. It was Paymont actually and SITTLER that led the point brigade. They almost both had 100 points. Paymont had 40 goals, SITTLER had 43. I mentioned Bill DERLAGO and Rick Vive. DERLAGO had 35, Vive had 33. Turnbull had 66 points, 19 goals, and Salming, one of his best seasons ever with 66 points. And John Anderson was still there as well, and Dan Maloney and Terry Martin. So there's still a lot of talent there, but like I said, the head office headaches and the way the team was trained, especially on defense. They had no defense. And the Adams division wasn't the Adams division where Montreal and Quebec were later successful. In this situation, it was a weak division, and they were the weakest team of the division. Second half of the season, they lost a lot of games that they shouldn't have lost. I think they had a 6 or 7 game losing streak or without a victory. It was a year where there was some good moments, but the goals against, they were still scoring a lot of goals, but he gave up 367 goals in a regular season, and he took way too many penalty minutes, cheap penalties, fighting that wouldn't lead anywhere. But in the division, Buffalo under Bowman was the leader, but the rest of the teams weren't any better than Toronto, Boston, Minnesota, and Quebec. That mediocre style of the early 80s that couldn't get you over. They did make the playoffs, but here's the kicker. The Leaf trade of Lanny McDonald, put him in a downward spiral. And get this, they would not post a winning record again in Ballard's lifetime. So for the many other years that Ballard ran the team, they went 13 consecutive seasons without a winning record. And 84-85, and that's been a headache for me for years because I saw Leafs every Saturday night, Hockey Night in Canada. They had the main game. They finished with the worst record in the league, 32 games below 500. 87-88 were just as bad. They ended up 1 point up on the Minnesota North Stars, who fell apart right after their Stanley Cup final appearance against the Islanders a few years before. They were still qualifying for the playoff format, but no offense. the Leafs fans have bled blue for years, and they bled not only blue, but they cried tears. If again they would have kept Lanny with DERLAGO and Vive, and here's the thing: if they would have wanted to pay him out, traded another player, Dan Maloney, or the young prospects, Bruce Woodrow, you could have traded for Paymont, kept Lanny McDonald. That's something I talked to with a buddy of mine years ago. And he said, you're right. You should have kept Lanny. Now, if you're a current Leaf fan of the Austin Matthews generation, Austin Matthews is the Tom Brady of the Toronto Maple Leafs. He brought a lot of fans back. I must tell you this: you're in heaven to have the good coaching staff, the good players, the good prospects. Imagine this: every time you turned on the TV on a Saturday night, you're a Leafs fan, you didn't know what was going to happen. You didn't know if the players were going to fight, if Ballard was going to do a Steinbrenner or Marge Schott. My God, what strange owners we had in the 1980s, eh? What a crackpot. The Ursays, the Colts owner. My God, that wouldn't work now. You're talking about the Me Too movement. What about the Us Too movement? Don't let morons, and even Donald Trump, he ran USFL, and he wasn't a bad owner, but like I said, as bad as Donald Trump is, 10 times worse Harold Ballard, because the stink of his ego and the stink of his self-centeredness and the stink of destruction of one of Canada's greatest teams will never, ever be forgotten. I'm 53 years old. I've never been a Toronto fan. I've had good friends who are Maple Leaf fans through the years. My good friend Paul Daly, my dear departed cousin Kevin Mullally. Good, solid, honest Leafs fans. I feel for you guys to be put through what you were put through in the 80s and still be a Leafs fan. But when Doug Gilmour arrived, that's another podcast down the road, he cleaned the house, he cleaned the palate. But Harold Ballard, I have a cousin in Toronto that allegedly he goes to Harold Ballard's grave every once in a while to just check if he's still dead. Just like that Klingon pain stick with the Klingon high commissioner or high leader guys in that Star Trek Next Generation. I'm glad Harold Ballard's dead. And in the words of Betty Davis, who said about Joan Crawford, shouldn't talk bad about the dead. Harold Ballard is dead. Good. Have a good evening, ladies and gentlemen. As we like to say in Leaf Nation, which I am not a part of, but I respect, keep your stick on the ice. Bye.